Hey, good afternoon, folks. My name is Kirk Calvar. I'm a senior software engineer and principal at Cal Technology. And today we're going to take a look at the Kubeflow QuickStart. We'll be installing this on AWS. And let's go ahead and see if we can get started. Oh. There we go. So with the advent of machine learning, AWS has done a lot of work trying to extend a IDE type environment to make it easier for data scientists and people to create machine learning models and to be able to deploy them and things like that. In the past, you'd have to have a lot of single tools that you would use. It was not impossible, but hard to do. So the IDEs, of course, if you've been a programmer at all, you'll know that, wow, when IDEs first came out quite a while ago, it just makes programming that much easier and a lot more fun, that's for sure. So SageMaker Studio is a machine learning IDE on AWS that puts a lot of tools at your fingertip and allows you to access a lot of the AWS services directly through the IDE. Well, Kubeflow is an open source machine learning IDE, but it's purpose-built to perform tasks for preparing data and building, training, and deploying, but it runs on a Kubernetes cluster. And because it's a Kubernetes cluster, it's going to be portable and scalable across multiple clouds and on-premise infrastructure. So there's some definite advantages to it. The other thing that you need to look at is AWS has very specific tools that you can use with their IDE. And the same thing with Kubernetes. They don't support all tools. You'll need to find out if the tool set that they support is going to work for your application. So in this presentation, we're going to provide a high-level view of Kubeflow, and then we're going to jump right into a simple lab, and we're going to install Kubeflow on AWS. So here's the Kubeflow architecture. So it's made up of a lot of services. This is not just a single program. You have PyTorch, Istio, Prometheus. You have the notebooks. Let's see, Juniper. You can do all these things through their IDE. And their IDE is basically web-based. And as you can see on the bottom, you can run this on Google Cloud, AWS Azure, on-premise, or on your local laptop. Now, I'm not sure what it would require to run on your local laptop, but obviously that's nice to be able to support all those environments. So this is just a basic view that Kubeflow provides at their website for their Kubeflow project. And you can, if you need more information, you can go look there, and I've got a link below for that. So let's go on here. So here's the dashboard. All right, and so you can see there's a lot of services here. I'm going to point to the left here, and there's the notebooks. So that's the Juniper notebooks. I think people that have worked with machine learning stuff know about the notebooks, and they're pretty cool. So there's lots of things here. You can do models. They can do pipelines on this, and that's out of the scope of this presentation. But as you can see, there's quite a few things that you can discover. So the goal of this presentation was pretty simple, really. There's a lot going on under the covers here, but what I wanted to do is be able to get you up and running on Kubeflow as quickly as possible so you can start exploring this. Now, a lot of things that I saw when I tried to install it was outdated documentation, documentation that was not clear. So I actually spent quite a bit of time going through this, and you'll be the beneficiary of that because it's repeatable, it's consistent, and it works pretty well. So hopefully I've given you kind of a quick way to get going. So this lab's going to be pretty straightforward. We're just going to create a EKS cluster, which is a Kubernetes cluster on AWS. Then we're going to install Kubernetes on there. And then we're going to open up the web UI through HTTP. So there's also this quick link down here. This is my quick start that you're doing today. That's on GitHub, and there's a link to it below on the bottom in the reference section, and that's available to anybody. So you can you'll see us use the GitHub as we're going through this. So for the lab prerequisites, you need to have an AWS account. I've been using root and an AWS account or an IAM account. Didn't have problems with either of them. I recommend that you use a root account so you don't have to worry about having permissions and stuff like that. And you'll need to be able to remotely SSH to the EC2 instance, which is where we're going to create what I call a Kubeflow cloud shell. And that's where a lot of the control stuff that we'll be doing for this demo, where this lab's going to be run from. Okay. And here's the references, and I'll point that. I'll bring that up again at the end. So let's go ahead and, okay, here's the GitHub project. So this is pretty much step-by-step, little blurb here. Here's the steps. They're all hyperlinked in there. So create the Kubeflow shell, how to connect to the shell, set the Kubeflow versions, check out the repo, everything you need to do, delete the cluster, all right in this README. And we'll actually be stepping through this. Okay. And so one thing I did do on create the Kubeflow cloud shell, I've already done this. So you can do it. There's step-by-step here. But just for time sakes, I decided to go ahead and get that up and running already, so it's ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go right here, and we're going to go ahead and connect to the Kubeflow cloud shell, and then we're going to go ahead and install some tools, and then set out the Kubeflow version, install the tools, check to make sure Python's set, configure our credentials, do a little test, and then create the EKS cluster, and we'll do that step by step. So let's go ahead and get started on that. I've also got cut and paste here too, which is kind of nice. So if you want to cut and paste those into a terminal window, sure beats a lot of typing. So I think that's a nice feature. So let's go over here to the dashboard, and I think we should have some instances running. Here we go. There's that cloud shell right there. All right. And let's go ahead and minimize that. So there are going to be two terminals here. This top one is going to be connected to the EC2 instance, the Kubeflow cloud shell. The bottom one is going to be just a terminal window open on your local machine, and you'll see how that comes into play a little bit later. But for now, we're going to use this one right up here. This one's going to be the one we use to connect to the EC2 instance. There we go. And we're logged on. So we'll be flipping back and forth here. Got it, right? So we'll cut and paste this and just go. And there we go. And that's the update. Usually when you start a new instance on a machine or on the cloud, you want to do an update, which gets the operating system software up to date. And that takes a few minutes. And while that's running, we're going to go ahead and see what we got to do next. Okay, so they're going to do these two steps. The next thing we need to do is set the Kubeflow version. And that's what and this is going to check out the GitHub that has all the Kubeflow software and instructions in it. Again, we're just going to go ahead and just copy that so you don't have to type that in. And looks like we're still working here. It's just about done. And we're ready to go. And away we go. And there we go. Now you'll also notice it's changed into the Kubeflow manifest directory. That it does that automatically. All right, so we just set that version. Now we're going to install the tools. And the tools are, I don't think it's Python, but there's an AWS client tool set that they install. You can look at the make script to find out what it does. There's lots going on under the cover here, guys. So, but everything's there. So if you need to look or you're curious, you sure can. So one thing I can recommend for people that are familiar with AWS, you can make a snapshot of this cloud shell that we're creating right here. So next time you need to start up a cloud shell, you just reference that AMI, and you don't have to go through this process 3 or 4 times. So the reason I'm doing this right now is because we're doing the presentation and I want you to see exactly what's going on. But typically if I'm doing this on my own, I'll do this once. I'll make a snapshot of it and I'll never do it again. I'll just keep using this until something else changes. And that's getting about done there. Okay, and the next thing we want to do is check this Python version. This particular installation is dependent on Python 3.8. So this little script here is just going to check to make sure Python 3.8 is in fact on the system and it's correct. You can see how much time you're going to save if you use a snapshot of this EC2 instance, because there's quite a few steps here. Okay, and we're done there. So now we're going to go ahead and check. And what we're looking for is Python 3.8, and it looks like we're good to go. So that's a dependency. If you don't use 3.8, I'm not sure what the dependencies on this installation are, but it will definitely fail. All right, so we're good. Now we're going to go ahead and configure the AWS client security credentials. I think a lot of you are probably already familiar with this. If not, you can just go ahead and follow along. Okay. I've already put mine in here, but you'll have to put your specific ones. And I won't go into how to find these. You're going to have to know how to do that or do a little research on how to put that in there. But we'll show you how to make sure that you've got it set up properly. Okay. And we did that. So we can export that. And export it. And then to test it, AWS S3 LS. And there you go. So that's S3. And I like to use that for testing my credentials because, hey, if you have access to S3, you've got access to AWS services. So it's a quick, simple little thing. It's not too involved. All right, where are we at now? There we go. So now we just create the cluster. Okay, so we're getting pretty close. Now we're going to start doing some heavy lifting. So again, we can just copy this. Go up here. And away we go. Now, this particular step takes about 20 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to let this roll. You can watch it go by if you want, just to make sure you kind of understand what the install is looking like. So in case you're doing this, you can compare it to make sure yours is going okay. You don't see any error codes. Or you can just fast forward through this presentation in about 20 minutes and we'll be back. And every once in a while during the install, I'm going to go there onto the AWS console and show you a few things that are going on. In fact, we can probably do that right now. Let's do that. I've already got that up here. So this is the cluster. And we should see Kubeflow being created. Okay. And CloudFormation, the EKS controls command uses a lot of uh, cloud formation in the background, and you'll see those starting and stopping right here or completing. So it's in progress right now. Okay, so let's come back in about 15 minutes, or I'll come back in about 5 minutes, and we can check to see what's going on. So we're just going to check in here, see what's going on. So the cluster nodes have not shown up yet, which would mean it's kind of getting close to the end there. But let's go ahead and look at the Kubernetes service and see if we can see anything in here. So let's still go on. It's a little slow building these clusters. So as a developer, you should be able to use this Kubeflow on your local machine, probably a lot faster for doing day-to-day work there. But, putting it in the cloud's definitely nice, but it does take a little time to get this cluster going. And the reason I say that, I don't believe that you would want to create a cluster and leave it running all the time. It would get really expensive. So I highly recommend that if you create a cluster, you use it. When you're done using it, shut it down so you're not causing expenses and stuff like that. So I think I worked with this for a month, and I think all the times that I used it, it cost me like $5 to do all the work I did with it, which I think is extremely cheap. But again, once I was done using the cluster, I would shut everything down and, remove everything. So, I think that makes a big difference. But again, how practical that is for a developer, you got to come in the morning at 8 o'clock. It takes you 30 minutes to get a cluster up and running, unless you've got other things that you can do in the meantime. That definitely takes some time. So let's go ahead and go to the EC2, and still no instances. CloudFormation, and it looks like it's still working on the cluster. So what'll happen is you'll see one when it creates the cluster nodes, you'll see another CloudFormation script pop up here. So for right now, it looks like we're still running, trying to create the cluster. And we're at about, looks like we got about 15 more minutes. All right, I'm just back for a few minutes and see if we can figure out what's going on here, see how we're doing. And Kubeflow. Oh, so the cluster is active. Oh, wow. Okay. So we're getting close there. Let's go back to CloudFormation and refresh. And cluster is complete. So now we should see the nodes come. It's not quite ready. It should have some nodes coming online here real quick. Let's see if we can see those starting up. And those are not available yet, so it's not quite there. And so let's check this. So we should see, this is the EKS CTL command. So pretty soon we should start seeing nodes being created in here. So we'll wait and see how that goes, and that should be showing up pretty quickly. And we're at, looks like about 10 minutes left, so we should be seeing some activity there. Again, I'm going to take a second here and show you the references here. So this is Kubeflow, the project site. They have their own. They have a lot of installation. If you wanted to put this on Google Cloud, a lot of the scripts that you would need are in this location. Now, this is for AWS. There's some specific things that they've done, and that's where you would go to look for AWS-specific Kubeflow installation and installation instructions. And then this is mine right here. This is the crawl, walk, run, QuickStart right there. So this is a good place to start. I would start here, get it up, play around with it for a little bit, and then you want to know specifics about the AWS version of it, you can go here or go to Kubeflow. And here we go now. So they're putting a system account in here, and that should show up on the CloudFormation scripts that we were looking at. And there it is right there. And that's complete. And now the node should come online, and once that's done, we'll be ready to go. So we're getting pretty close. And let's find out where we are right now on these steps. So we created this. We're doing that right now. And the next step will be to deploy Kubeflow. And there's our nodes. So that's getting started right now. So let's go over to Kubernetes service, go into Kubeflow, go to compute, and guess what? 5 nodes. So it's coming online. What else can we look at? EC2s. And they should be popping up here shortly. I'm surprised they're not showing up. They'll be there shortly. So we're down to 6 or 7 minutes. And so when this is all done, this will end. This installation script will end. So we'll have a real definitive way of knowing whether this is complete or not. And let's go ahead and check the nodes. We should be seeing something. There we go. That's our Cloud Shell right there. And these are the 5 nodes that the cluster is going to be using. Yep, getting close. Let's go to the CloudFormation. And it should be close. And if you want to know what goes on, go in here and it will tell you all the events, everything it's doing. You weren't afraid to ask, but this is what's going on. These are the step-by-steps. So there's a lot of information here. So we're getting close here. And it looks like we're down to about 4 minutes. So I think we're on track. So while we're waiting for this to finish, let's go look at the here we go. This is something that I glossed over there. So this is going to check your cluster status, and this is going to tell you what to node. So this is a simple way to make sure that your cluster is up and running. Just simple little checks. That's it. We'll do that before we go to deploy Kubeflow. So those will be the next things we do. Looks like we're about done here. That's about 20 minutes. Let's go to the cloud formation. There you go. So let's go to EKS. And of course it says it's active. So let's go look at the nodes here, compute nodes. And it's active too. So we look like we're good to go here. And guess what? It did finish. Great. So now we can go ahead and check it. And we're going to go ahead and just check to make sure the cluster is operational. And of course it's active. Everything looked good. And then we're going to use the, this is the actual kube control command line utility. We're going to actually see what it tells us about the nodes, just to show you that we can use kube control to do further work on your cluster if you needed to. Oh, got to do it again. And we're good to go. All right, so let's go ahead, and the next thing we're going to do, once I get my cursor in the right place, okay, be sure you're in the Kubeflow manifest thing, which is already in that script, and we'll go ahead and install Kubeflow. Yeah, do that again. You can only do it once. Can't do it 5 times. There you go. And away we go. Now this particular portion takes 10 minutes. So as you can see, we're 30 minutes now for installing this. That's a lot of time. So if there's things you can do, like making a snapshot of the Kubeflow shell, cloud shell, in advance, that's going to save you time. So anything you can do other than that. So it does take a little bit of time to get this started. And then once Kubeflow is installed, we've got a couple of checks that we can run on it, and then it'll be ready to go. We can actually look at the UI, and then that'll be the end of this demo or this lab. So there's a lot going on underneath the covers here, guys. Yeah, a lot of work. Someone's done a lot of work. I'm not taking responsibility or account or saying that I did all this. I'm basically just making sure that everything that you do here is going to work consistently and repeatably. And that's all I've done. Somebody spent a lot of time setting this stuff up. So it looks like this is going to run for a bit. So I'm going to be real quiet. So while we're waiting to finish this up, let's look at some of the things we're going to do to test this out. So really, it's just using kube control to just test these pods to see if these pods are in place. This is actually from kubeflow.org. So it just all the services, just make sure all the services are up and running. So if everything's doing good, this should all pass. And then we'll go ahead and log into the dashboard, and we'll log on, and then we'll go ahead and we'll be done. And then I will show you how to delete this cluster. And I got a few comments on that. One thing I really like about how this works, this whole thing. So right now we're still waiting for this to be done, and then we'll check for the status. In fact, I can just grab that right now. and just wait here until it's ready to go. There we go. There we go. So all pods are running. So let's go ahead, and I probably need to capture that again. Here we go. And all you need to do is just look in here. Everything should be running. I wouldn't worry too much about what this stuff is right now. Just make sure you see the word running every place. We're ready to go, guys. All right. And let's check back in, see where we're at on our list. There we go. Okay. So this is the little confusing part here. Remember, we have two terminal windows, one that's actually connected to the EC2 instance, that Kubeflow Cloud Shell, and then local terminal. So the first one here is actually going to be executed in the Kubeflow Cloud Shell, that top window. So basically what we're doing here, since we're not going to expose this port and have to create a external IP address or expose it in AWS so that you can access that UI, we're going to do a stupid trick. Actually, it's a pretty cool trick of using SSH to tunnel that port back to your local machine. I've not seen, well, I've used this quite a bit, but it wasn't until recently, maybe a couple of years ago, that I actually saw this done, and it's pretty cool. So we're going to use that. We're going to use port forwarding, and anything on the UI is going to be forwarded to your local machine on your local host at port 8080, which is real nice. Okay. And then there's one command we need to run on the terminal that's on your local machine. And that's the one right there that sets up the local port. Okay, the other thing you need to notice, These are not, these are running in the foreground, so they're locked. So you can't, if you kill these two, it's going to kill the port forwarding. So you can put them in the background by using the and sign. I'm sure you guys are probably somewhat familiar with that. But for this lab, I'm just going to leave them in the foreground like that. So there's not going to be the terminal access. Look, if you go like this, see, yeah, you're not going to get a prompt. So that terminal is locked up right now. All right, and then we're almost done. So the next thing we do is we just need to go to a browser and put this local port in here. Oh, sorry about that. And there we go. Okay, one more thing. Now, this is a standard password user ID thing. This is for demo purposes only, just to show you. It's set when you install it. You can change it. There's ways to do that. So this is just for the example. And once I've got this cluster up and running, it's going to be torn down, so there's not going to be any information that I have to worry about. So let's go ahead and just voila, there she is. So notebooks, Jupyter notebooks, create a new notebook. So here's everything that you can do. There's tons of stuff, guys. So you're now on the Kubeflow UI, so you can start learning about it and do whatever you need to do. All right. So let's go ahead and finish up here. And there you go. And just a short reminder, here are the references for this lab. In the GitHub, you'll also have these slides are available to you. I've got an MIT license on this stuff, so you're free to replicate it and use it as much as long as you provide with some reference for this README that I have here. There's these slides and stuff like that. So hopefully use it. And again, my name's Kurt Calver with Cal Technology, and thanks for joining us this afternoon.